that down. But it was that you see a chauvinism. All right. One of the central values of ancient Egyptian civilization was Ma'at, the concept of harmony and balance in all aspects of one's life. This idea was most important that was observed by the pharaohs. And it was supposed to be a role model for how lives should be lived, balanced, or everything should be balanced in life. And it goes on to name some other things. In ancient Egypt, a woman enjoyed the same rights under the law as a man, in contrast to ancient Greek women who were supervised by a kyrios, meaning a male guardian. And many Greek women who lived in Egypt during the Ptolemaic period, Queen Testament, observing Egyptian women acting without kyrios, male guardians, were encouraged to do so themselves. In short, an ancient Egyptian woman enjoyed greater social standings than many of the women of other societies, both ancient and present. So it's saying that when they came in, the Greek women, the Roman women, they had kyrios, which was male guardians. When they got into Egypt, they saw these women walking around on the ship and everything else. And so they wanted to do the same thing. Rome, like, get back in your place. You see, it came with Western influence. So, let me get ready to move to my close. So then, when Paul was writing the letters addressing women, you still had an influence of the Egyptians still active. And there was a conflict because they had been conquered and so forth. So many of the Jewish women and so forth, when they come in contact with what they call Greek women, Gentile women, which Ethiopian all, they wanted to act in the same liberty. And so the men were like, they out of order. Tell them to be quiet. We want them to be like the Roman women. Why? They adopted. So even MacArthur said, understand, well, let me find MacArthur and I'm gonna start closing, right? I got one other thing to read, if I can find MacArthur. He puts it in a, well, I forgot where I put it. MacArthur. Wait a minute, let me see here. Maybe I put it over here. Here it is, MacArthur. This is what MacArthur commentary is up to date and still alive. When Paul was writing about addressing the role of women in the church, he said, this is not an absolute law for all times. That's what we went wrong. He wasn't writing for all time. He was trying to establish order because they were adopting the Egyptian practices of being independent, and they wanted them to get, and it was causing conflict and chaos within, because they were trying to control. So he says, here's what we went wrong. It's not adopting a law for all time, but to establish male and female roles according to cultural customs. Look what he goes on to say. There is nothing spiritual about wearing or not wearing a head covering. Got nothing to do with God. It was a cultural custom that their men wanted them to do, that their women were saying, get that off me. Because it was a sign of a subservient role. And they resisted the subservient role and connotation that was put on them. So the covering became a symbol that you're in your place. Subservient, and they shook it off like, no, no, no. My place is where I'm anointed to be. And they resisted that. And so Paul was addressing the call for peace and order. But he says it was not supposed to be a law. And here we are today still teaching a cultural custom. Making women feel like if their head ain't covered something wrong, like, God, I ain't rolling. Man, you done lost your mind. There's nothing spiritual about wearing or not wearing head covering. Many women reject the covering that began to symbolize submission in the culture. God assigned roles to each and to establish conduct and behavior in order and so forth. So this principle applies to the Godhead equally as well. So they resisted that cultural custom that represented a subservient role. And so he had the right, for peace sake, in this culture, please y'all, go home and talk to your husband. Put a covering over your head. But even MacArthur today says this was never meant to be a law.
Yes.
It was a cultural custom. And so he also said, when in Rome, do as the Romans. So that's why when we go over to Egyptian different countries, we put a covering over because that's their cultural custom, and the step outside of that can be offensive.
Yes.
So you do on a I think I told you before when I bought a car from some Korean, something like that, their custom is when a contract is made, you have to sit down and drink tea. So we had to sit down at a table this high. I could my knees don't bend like that, but I had to figure out how to get down there because it was offensive if I didn't do it.
Yes.
It's offensive in the Jewish culture that if you have a wedding and you run out of wine, it's a curse on the wedding. That's why Mary had to say, they're running out of wine because it would curse the wedding. So Jesus turned the water into wine because otherwise the couple is cursed because they ran out of wine.
Yes.
So you had to drink wine at a wedding. That's a good custom right there.
I knew you were going to say
That's a good custom right there.
You don't run out of wine.
I drink wine or champagne everywhere. We see you don't run out? All right. When I come there, we're going to practice culture. Like
We don't run out of food, we don't run out of wine. We have it all.
Let me close with this. Let me close with this right here. Let me close with this because I'm over. Thank you for your patience. I didn't intend to teach this long. But help me kill the snake. But I want to show you because what we're talking about is the division among the sexes that Satan introduced that brought conflicts because everybody got out of the road. We're fighting about power when it's about function. That's the point. And so the snake, what I want to show you is the snake is still alive and well, so we got to help me to kill the snake. So by exposing, okay, I'm gonna skip through some of this, but let me just read a little bit. The breakdown of the black family was brought to national attention in 1965 by sociologist and Democratic Senator Daniel Moynihan. The groundbreaking Moynihan Report, also known as the Negro Family, the Case of National Action. He reports made the argument that just let me finish up. He said this, that he reported, he was talking about the argument of the absence of the nuclear family. That's with father and mother and children in the household. Talking about the black American family. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna just read this for you. I know I'm old, but I want you to hear this. A study in 1880, family structure in Philadelphia, showed that 3/4 of the black families were nuclear families. A father, mother, some children composed of 2 parents. And this study is from 1880 to 1960. It talks about the 2-parent household. In Harlem, New York City, another report, in 1925, 80% of the black households had 2 parents and so forth. The Moynihan reported in 1965 of the common destruction of the black family. Now, let me skip down to this. We say that how 85% and so forth. I'm going to skip all the statistics. In 2016, African-American families were married. 29% of them were married, while 48%. So it went from 85% before 1965 to 29%.
Yes.
What happened?
Welfare.
And I just said to come against the families, to come against God. What happened? What happened? The enemy. Okay, let me give you this one, and this let me close. There are many reasons for it, and I'm gonna skip all of those. poverty, lack of job opportunities, and so forth, and destabilized. But another economic theory put forward in the 60s was called the man in the house rule. Prior to 1960, the black family and community was the strongest it had ever been. It was so strong that neighborhoods and communities were self-contained, self-sufficient. Wealth and money was passed throughout the neighborhood. We didn't have to hardly go on the other side of the track, and the people stayed over there on the other side. But what happened was they on the other side started coming on our side and seeing how these folks come from slavery with nothing and then built communities. They got stores and shoe shops, dry cleaners, carpenters, big masons, money. These folks got money. It can't be here. So Tulsa wasn't the only ones. There were many black families, Florida, Rosewood, all that were destroyed, that were thriving black communities. Until finally, the government got involved to say, these folks right here, something else. Man in the house rule. I'm gonna close right here. This restricted two-parent households from receiving government benefits, which made many black families move out, meaning the male, to be able to receive help and support of their families. These rules were later abolished by the Supreme Court against, this is King versus Smith, because it's unconstitutional and so forth and so on. And it goes on to say some more, but it goes on to say, in essence, that this contributed to the destruction of the African-American family as we know it today. The black family, which had survived centuries of slavery and discrimination, after that rule began rapidly to disintegrate into a liberal welfare state, and so forth and so on. And then on top of that, black males incarcerated 6 times the rate of whites. In the 50s, up until that, black communities were very strong. This generation was far poorer than us now, but their communities were safer, self-sufficient, and self-governed. At the heart of the crisis lies the self-perpetuated culture of the ghetto that was created and so forth. And it goes on to say. We got to finish killing the snake.
You got to kill it.
Because it put us at war. We cannot achieve as a unit. We're in conflict with not only us as a people with each other, we're fighting, quote unquote, a Roman influence of gender conflict. It's the trick of the enemy. We never really had genderism issues until Greek and Rome got there, and now here we are still fighting, and I promise you to close like this, and even in our young artists who do music, that's mostly run by Jews and Italians who own everything. If they don't speak murderous, derogatory language against the females and killing each other, they don't get to sign the contract.
That's right.
Yes.
That's the deal. Your language has to be derogatory toward the female and killing toward. Why is not killing making something not outlawed? Because normally you go on Facebook and do that, but when it's black on black, they say, well, that's okay, that's what we want. Perpetuate this.
Yes.
But they have to do it in order to get the contract. Trick of the enemy. No other culture degrades his females like we're doing.
Yes.
And we're operating under the influence of others outside of our culture that tell us if you don't do this, you don't get the contract. We don't care how good you are. You better wake up and kill the snake.
Yes, Lord.
Yes. And they're part to it because everybody should get the money.
Yeah.
Come on now.
I'm over.
Help us, Lord.
Luke says, I saw Satan fall like light from heaven. It's Jesus' word. I give you authority to trample on the serpent. Today, what I'm saying is you are free to trample on his head. Kill him. Kill him.
Kill it.
And truth is the only antidote that you have, anti-serum, anti-venom that you have to inoculate you to the poison that we've been sold. But you better kill him. Otherwise, it's going to be he can continue to poison the next generation and the next one. Today, I'm just making a prophetic decree. Today, we put our head on the snake. We take authority over him. We kill the rascal that's going to tore up our families. Clap your hands for the Lord.